Today, we hope this 30 minutes you got a lot of takeaways. Actually, the four of us just met on this past Monday at a coffee shop, and we feel like we are very comfortable about this topic, and we have a lot of insights we learned from each other. And on Wednesday, we went to play basketball. Okay.
It was fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And today we're gonna decouple this question, and it means to be on structure. It means to be having a lot of spontaneous insights from our expertise and experience. So first of all, I'm gonna have each of you guys maybe use less than 1 minute to introduce yourself, your company, your product.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia. I'm from Hong Kong. I am running Deploy Capital.online, and we are a distributed scout network and evaluation network for early stage venture deals. That's it. That's my pitch.
That's short and sweet. Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan, and I'm the founder CEO of Fundhive.ai. So what we do, you can think of us very simply like Crypto Tinder, but for Web3 funding. We focus on the discovery. We focus on the presenting the social layer of the VCs and the projects themselves and how they interact with each other. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Ian Lin. I'm a director of product at Circle, the USDC company, and I run the programmer wallet. It's an embedded wallet as a service product there. My experience with AI started when I was in grad school. I did research with Andrew Ng, one of the most notable researchers in the space. And then spent like over a decade at Microsoft and Facebook working on AI and search.
Well, it's very glad to have so many experts in AI and Web3 intersection. And you know, around this time last year was the rise of ChatGPT, OpenAI, and suddenly a lot of attention and capital have been driven from Web3 to AI. I remember seeing a lot of memes on Facebook, Instagram saying that Web3 investors are all changing their deck to invest it in AI last year. But around this time, a lot of people seems like seeing Web3 turning from a more bearish market to a bullish market sign, probably also because of the upcoming Bitcoin halving. And I want to ask the first question, what are some of the trends you see in AI, Web3, or the intersection between AI and Web3?
Yeah, I think if we are talking about trends and momentum, going from a bearish market to a bullish market, we like to call this the FOMO-driven economy. So this is where people, who coin themselves as, metaverse experts, and then now suddenly you are looking at, AI experts, and you ask them what they do, and they just write prompts. Right? So I think it's really important to distinguish between the different types of technology that are pushing this whole field forward, between the foundational things like building the models, having the servers, having the infrastructure built, and then there's also the application layer where people are building on top of those foundations. And these two things, I would say that most of the hype is driven by the mass adoption application layer, but it is still really important to look back into, all right, what are the foundational models, what are, what we were talking about before, just how AI and blockchain can actually, on a technical level, work together to serve up better infrastructure so that the application layers can also benefit from that.
Yeah, just to add on Sophia's point, I think she talked about applications, right? So in terms of trading strategies and in terms of the users coming onto a platform from a new user perspective or from an old user perspective, at least a crypto native, I think they both present different types of verticals in the application of AI. Perhaps for new users, they'll probably use the AI to advise them on what kind of tokens are having some volume that is addressed by that one exchange or many multiple exchanges added together, and it can form a product by itself. Whereas for existing crypto user, I believe so that he will probably use it more of an analytics point of view, where he will apply his own different kind of technical analysis, emotional trading into the entire mix. And also on top of this, there's also the shift from generalization to individualism. Because when you use generalized AI and shifting it into an individual AI, you can kind of see the trader's perspective. You can see that the AI that was born out from the person's perspective, preferences, it can kind of mimic everything and give you the analytics that, hey, actually I have traded so and so, and why did I trade this? The AI could have detected that, it was sort of impulse buy, right? This is kind of the things that AI can definitely help, and they do it on-chain and off-chain, whether is it a product on an exchange or not.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think that like the trend I really seen over this cycle is that there are a lot of bullshit that's trending up. When there's a hype, there's bullshit talking about how AI and like Web3 can work together. There's FOMO, as Sophia mentioned, that investors are pouring money in it. It may still be good investment, but if you go down to the fundamentals, I just really like to pay attention to what real user problem are we solving, and is Web3 the right solution to enhance AI, or AI the right solution to enhance Web3? I think going back to the foundations is that it's really important to understand what is AI capable of, and the difference between, say, for example, the most recent Gen AI versus in the past, it's just like machine learning, predictive classification type of problems, or running regression models. And from that, like understanding what are the capability of Web3 and trying to find the intersection where a decentralized blockchain technology can actually solve for it. And yeah, like I'm still trying to find like the next big thing, right? Like the chat GPT of Web3 and AI. But I haven't seen anything yet, and I'm hoping that people are working on it.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I think there's a big part of this FOMO-driven economy that is from just the discourse around Web3 and AI, because these things are buzzwords, and recommendation algorithms also then push more and more hype into it, so it becomes a momentum where people are just looking at it just from an outsider's point of view. But in order to actually understand the underlying technologies, we must work on more education towards the mass public. And a lot of times, this is something we talked about as well, is that people have a hammer looking for a problem to solve. So we have to go back to the fundamentals and think about, what is that actual problem that you are solving?
Actually, just based on your conversation, I come up with a question that I haven't sent you before, but I'm very interested because Sophia mentioned a lot about fundamental and infrastructure technology in AI, and Jordan Ian just mentioned a lot about applications. Like, internally at Outliers Fund, we call these Nikola Tesla for AI Web3, and those Thomas Edison. So for those, Nikola Tesla are those people who can actually push the boundaries of scientific research, publish papers, and then maybe build a new hammer without, it's more like tech push, without knowing which vertical problems to solve yet. But there's, on the other side, those Thomas Edison who can lower the barriers, educate the market, maybe eventually push to mass adoption. And want to know, what are the traits you see in these two types of different founders in the space, no matter AI or Web3?
That's a good question. So I think that in terms of the traits of the founders, I don't think one specific thing would categorize people who are working in the deep research versus the ones who are working on the application problem layer. But it's more about what kind of problem you want to solve. A lot of the founders that are working on the foundational layer, they come from research. They come from academia. They come from, it's a very different beast when you're working with mass market and people who have a problem that they want to solve. For example, let's just say property management, right? I want to optimize the property management platform. So you want to have people who have deep expertise in that domain working on those problems on the application layer versus people who are deep researchers looking into better ways of optimizing these models or having better infrastructure.
This is actually a question our LP, our investor, asked us yesterday. And I probably relay this question to you guys about traits, really about funders' personality and traits. Like, because today we have we have a topic not only for builders, not only for founders, but also from an investment opportunities perspective. So like, I don't know whether, including Fund Hive, you probably see a lot of investors and see a lot of founders. Is there some of the traits that you use to pick those next generation Nikola Tesla or next generation Thomas Edison?
Okay, I used to be from OKX as well, so I dealt with the project side of integration on a chain in the past. So I had to deal with a lot of their requests in terms of marketing requests, technical analysis, technical assistance, grants and investment as well from the venture funds. So with that, I managed to understand what these projects are trying to understand. And to answer your question about Nikola Tesla, right? We are also searching for that breakthrough in moving from one state to another state. For example, like when Bitcoin came out, what was the next thing that actually brought Bitcoin to the next level? Same thing. If let's say talking about Uniswap, or right now DeFi or NFTs, what is the next thing that brings that one underlying software or technological advance to the next one? For example, NFTs, it's OpenSea, right? So beyond OpenSea, there was even a higher iteration, Blur.io, right? With its revolutionary technology, it managed to mimic a better open market for the rest. But we are trying to find how do I put this to you? A direct opposite, and that can reflect each other's advantages.
Yeah, so to answer your question about traits, I think that, let's say, for example, the Tesla versus Edison, I like to use an analogy, like in kind of the tech industry, is that you can think about the Teslas of the world are likely the scientists, the engineers, right? These are type of probably more in academic, who are looking into building breakthrough technology, building the foundations. And then the application layer, I'd imagine that these are people probably more like the product managers. These are people who think out about the businesses, how to get mass market adoption with existing technology, and figure out how to identify those problems that are really painful and this technology can solve really well. So I'd imagine that as an investor, if you want to look for a founder's background, you could actually look at, hey, have they had any experience in some of these fields? Or do they come from academic? Have they done foundational research? Are they real in what they say? Which oftentimes the researchers and engineers I talk to, yeah, they know their shit, right? And the product managers are the storytellers. They can tell stories, identify the audience, and then figure out how to sell the product. And yeah, in my experience, I probably segment those into two.
Yeah, but I would also kind of disagree in putting people into camps because I think that there's a lot of survivorship bias in the innovation economy where we try to identify, oh yeah, what is one trait that unifies all of these people? But I think that's also limiting in a way into thinking what could be an outlier, what could be something that other people cannot think of. And that comes from actually, when you're looking at AI or machine learning, it's about identifying trends. But the whole point of being someone who can be a leader and disruptor in the space is when you are off trend, when you are not really doing what everyone else is doing. So I think, on one hand, yes, we can think of it from a trends mentality. Okay, yeah, what is the commonality from all of these people? But at the same time, there is an element of luck about your exposure to different opportunities. And we do want to highlight the people who might not have an existing reputation, existing network, existing accolades from all these academic institutions, not saying that they cannot make a disruption in the space.
Yeah, I really agree that. Yesterday at our GPLP meeting, an investor asked me about what verticals do we see making the headlines and the next trend of wave. And honestly, in the past 8 years, this is the hardest question I want to answer because when there is a trend, when there is a vertical that we start to categorize as a vertical, most likely we are already missing out the 1000x first mover. Say for Steppen, when Steppen come out, there is a new wave of X to earn, work to earn, sex to earn. so many different external projects trying to copy and paste Stepan's success in community building and tokenomics and so on. But when Stepan has already made a new category, most likely you can only define a category winner, but the category winner might not be able to yield even over 100x. So actually, I quite agree with what you said about outliers. This is probably contradicting to the word of outliers itself. And maybe the next question should be controversial, but I want to know, again, this is not drafted in our question list, but I want to know if there is one thing that you think most people in this audience will disagree with you about AI and Web3.
You guys want to start first?
One thing that most people would disagree with me, I don't know. You know,
You
like
gotta be a mind reader.
Especially about challenges, because just now we were very opportunistic, like talking about all positive stuff about AI and Web3, but we didn't talk about bottleneck. We didn't talk about challenges. Is there one challenge in AI or Web3 or its intersection that most people might disagree with?
I think it's definitely human intervention for AI. So some probably users might not trust the AI that much. Even ChatGPT sometimes may be wrong, right? So when to put it into a very vanilla sense, for investing in something that requires money, right? You know, for you to put it on the table to say that I would like to invest this, it's not really that easy for the user to accept that someone else is making the decision for me, but has to accept that AI is sometimes smarter than me. So they need to find a balance of which they are comfortable with, right? Which is why just now, early on, I said the point about individualism. Every investor is different. Portfolio is different. Risk profile is different as well. So all of these things added together, it would actually show an individualistic approach towards, say, investing. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are good points, and thanks for giving me a bit of time to think about what people would disagree with me. So I think, given this is like a Taipei Blockchain Week, a Web3 audience, I would say that most people probably disagree with my point is that AI is better centralized. And this is a reason, given my experience in the field of AI, I've worked at large companies. I think that AI is a volumes game, it's a speed game, and it's a capital game. So it's really hard for startups to compete in this space. I think there's one in a million, like OpenAI, that is able to deliver something that's able to compete with Google, Microsoft, Facebook. And the thing about data is that the more data you have and the less you care about the privacy, the faster you can build models. That is just a fact for AI. So when you talk about preserving privacy, ensuring that like people have control over their data, you're putting a lot of like friction and headwinds in building a very like good AI model, right? Everybody's thriving to try to get to AGI. Any friction is going to put you behind all the competition for those people who doesn't really care about privacy, doesn't care about any of that. So, and back to my original point is that, well, how can blockchain really help AI? I think that it doesn't really help AI in accelerating the path to AGI. It may be helping AI in a different way in ensuring that people's like data are protected properly. But is that the most important thing right now for AI industry? It's hard to say. But I think that like definitely in terms of like the speed of the development of AI requiring like access to a large amount of data and the amount of capital that's needed just puts startups at odds, and especially startups in the Web3 and AI space. And there may be angle there, not trying to achieve AGI, but on the other path, trying to solve AI for a specific vertical, for a specific problem, that may be opportunity. And hence, I'm still bullish about it. It's just that, broadly speaking, I think the top industry trend of pursuing AGI I don't really see a path where like blockchain or decentralized technology can really help accelerate that path.
So I was going to say something along those lines as well. I think that in the intersection of AI and blockchain, AI is a very centralized model right now. All the big companies, all the biggest contributors to this economy are the big companies that are at war with each other. And with blockchain, we obviously see this opportunity of giving more power to the people and also decentralizing this knowledge as well. But something, I was trying to think of something controversial to say, but I think it would be really difficult for me to, pinpoint exactly, one challenge that I see that you might disagree with, because I think because in this room, right, we're all working towards a similar mission, and yeah, it would be really difficult for me to bring it out of context and talk about that. But I do think that, AI will disrupt the future of work. And I would just say that if it's something controversial, I would say maybe try to expand outside of Web3 and AI. I know they're buzzwords right now, but I do think that there's still a lot of value to be added by people who have that domain expertise towards where your what problem you're trying to solve. Because a lot of times, if you're just looking at tech teams, maybe their entire portfolio, their entire history of experience comes from deep tech. Or if you have product managers, they most likely work for a big company, and that's all they know how to operate. So we want to see more people just trying to solve problems that are very real to them, and hoping that whatever they build can also serve others. And I think my advice, or my biggest challenge, is to find people who aren't as into this, and really try to figure out a way to how to bridge this technology to industry.
Okay. Another one question that is not drafted at all, but based on Ian's conversation about decentralization and centralization, it reminds me about 5 years ago, our team put together a chart for me about 6 different phases of, let's say this axis is decentralization, this one is centralization, this is the time. We feel like phase 1, when, there is a movie called Hidden Figures, when 3 black women was solving like computational problems at NASA. That was probably the first time we have this word computer. And it's decentralized human computing. But when the ending screen for that movie was IBM pushed out of its supercomputer, mainframe computing. That's clearly phase 2, centralized mainframe supercomputing. And then when Tim Berners-Lee invented this triple W, or HTTP, TCP, IP from Japanese, we got into more decentralized web computing. Again, everyone can host a server and application, browser, interacting through browser. But then the phase 4 was when Google, Microsoft, coming out of their cloud, we become more centralized cloud computing as well. And probably around slightly over 10 years ago was the paradigm of Bitcoin, blockchain. More and more people in the developer space are becoming decentralized maxi, especially those emerge from a community. And right now, with the rise of AI and quantum computing, we got back to centralized again. Centralized AI and quantum computing again. Like in between, in Chinese, it's like a trend of 分久必合，合久必分. It has thousands of history of like that. It's just in the past 200 years, in computing this keyword, we have been battling between centralized. I feel like almost for the developers that I meet, they are either decentralized maxi or centralized maxi. There's no like in between. So what are the scenarios that we really need centralization? Ian provided a very good example, but what are some of the other scenarios when you see decentralization happening?
Well, I see that this is always going to be a battle. It's not necessarily, I don't see it as kind of a linear graph, right? It is always going to be pushing and pulling from these 2 different sources. And this mostly comes from policy and regulation, which is the ultimate centralization of power. And then you also have decentralization, which is the technology itself. When you are at its infancy, you need a lot of different people working on the problem in order to find the best one. That is the nature of competition, right? And I think these 2 things will always have a opposite effect towards each other, and we will never have a only decentralized model or only centralized model. It will always be somewhere in the middle. And I'm all for open source technology so that we can provide more opportunities to people. And whether these be good actors, bad actors, who's to judge, right? And that's where the regulation piece comes in. There's no right ethics or right morality code. It depends on so many contexts. And so I think this is where that drama between decentralization and centralization comes in. But I would say, yeah, on technological progress, we definitely need decentralization in order for more people to work on a problem. And then on the regulation side, okay, how does that technology now then affect others? Right? Because the internet protocol started very decentralized, and obviously now it's becoming more and more centralized. But it was intended to protect the people from whatever's out there. So yeah, I think this is a tough question, but that's where I see it.
Great.
For sure, it's a tough question. In terms of trying to get that out, like exactly like what you said, I think it's also important to understand that Web3 and AI has this intersection of which actually they look quite similar in the sense of their early days and also where they are right now, at least for Bitcoin 13 years later, ever since the first Bitcoin was mined, right? So it took some time for Bitcoin to get to where it is today. I believe AI will also do the same step, but when Bitcoin came out, let's say a bigger centralized exchange take on Bitcoin, and then that was the Nikola Tesla moment, right? That it went from that into Thomas Edison. So that's the exact kind of thing that might happen with this, but it might be a flip kind of situation where Bitcoin is decentralized, and then centralization comes from the exchanges. Then as for the AI, you started off with centralized, and then now we're trying to pull it back. So it's kind of like what was the Chinese saying that you had earlier on?
分久必合，合久必分。
Yeah, that one. Yeah, but somehow I think the decentralization will happen at some point. It is happening in many cases in the DApps right now, although I believe, like what Ian said, the effectiveness of it has not really shown just yet. But I think somewhere, somehow people would see the value of it due to them actually using it on an everyday basis.
Yeah, in my view, I think that it's always going to be a mix, right? I think Sophia and Jordan also mentioned it, that the centralization and decentralization are just options, right? Centralization provides efficiency, but the values gets aggregated at the centralized entities. Decentralization provides like distributed like autonomy and control, which the value can get distributed better to the individuals. You can look at this from a lot of different levels, right? I think Jordan mentioned there could be exchanges, centralized exchanges versus DEX. Different pros and cons. People choose what they want, and over time, it may gravitate toward one another. AI, I think it's one of those fields. I think centralization have been like predominantly taking the lead. I haven't seen a really good instance of decentralized AI, and hence I'm curious and eager to see if there's any involvement there. If you look at it at the nation state level, there's also like basically authoritarian states and democracy. And you could argue that, well, authoritarian states have its pros in certain areas, but democracy also, like obviously as we live in, have its pros as well. So there's always trade-offs, right? Depending on the problem that we want to solve, and depending on the kind of technology that we can provide to solve these problems, there will be trends of moving like back and forth between decentralization and centralization. And I think that it's really fascinating where Web3 coming from a fully decentralized angle and AI coming from, in my mind, a very centralized angle. What is that intersection? It may not be super obvious, but I think that if someone figures out, it would be pretty fascinating. And I'm going to throw an idea out here, because I've been dwelling on this. It's like, I don't know if this is going to be a big thing, but I think that it's worth like exploring, which is agent-based AI. I'm sure many of you have heard about agent-based AI, right? So agent-based AI is like autonomous agent can operate on their own and is able to make decisions on their own. Now, you can't have a centralized model to manage these agent-based AI. Otherwise, this is really just one AI, and like you're just talking to it like via different prompts. So I think it would be pretty fascinating if the agent-based AI eventually evolves to a state where there's a lot of different AI agents completing different tasks and is able to independently make decisions. I think that would be actually something I'd be paying attention to.
Yeah, and a little bit more just to wrap up, but on AI, I think there's always been this idea that how do you preserve privacy, right? With federated machine learning, you can think of it as like the first idea for privacy preserving machine learning. But then on the other hand, you also have ideas like, agent-based learning as well, and how can different agents coordinate with each other through blockchains. You can have a immutable ledger of all the transactions or actions from these actors and agents and see how they interact with each other. And I think that could blow up into an entirely new ecosystem as well.
Nice. I think we are perfectly on time. I hope all the audience have some takeaways, maybe some inspirations to think beyond this topic. And thanks again for all the speakers and attention. Thanks.